Ethan Carter always knew how to make a story sparkle. That was his thing. Taking the mundane and spinning it into something beautiful, something Instagram-worthy. Every frame in his vlogs was meticulously crafted. Every word in his posts designed to inspire envy. With his million-strong following and lucrative sponsorships, Ethan had crafted an enviable life with his girlfriend, Sophie Bennett, by his side. They were the it couple of the influencer world. Brands loved their polished chemistry. Fans adored their adorable banter and well-staged romance. Yet, as Ethan angled his Canon OS for another couple's cooking vlog, he noticed Sophie's laughter didn't quite reach her eyes. "Babe, can you chop the onions a little finer?" Sophie's voice was light, but she wasn't looking at him. She was staring at her phone, her thumbs moving faster than usual. Ethan paused. "Sophie, we're on camera." She blinked, then flashed her signature radiant smile. "Right? Sorry, just a work thing." She set the phone down on the counter, screen face down, and picked up the knife. Ethan glanced at the phone, his stomach tightening. Sophie was never one to be distracted during filming. She thrived in front of the camera, soaking up the attention. But over the past few weeks, she had grown more distant, her phone suddenly becoming her most prized possession. Later that evening, they were curled up on the couch, or at least Ethan was. Sophie sat on the other end, scrolling through her phone with the intensity of someone solving world peace. "What are you looking at?" Ethan asked casually, trying not to sound accusatory. "Just work emails." She glanced at him and then quickly back at the screen. "Emails? At 10 at night?" Sophie shrugged. "Some of us don't get to make a living showing off our abs and smoothie recipes." Her tone was playful, but it stung just a little. Ethan chuckled, brushing it off. "Touché." The next morning, Ethan woke up to an empty bed. Sophie's side was cold, her pillow untouched. He stumbled into the kitchen, expecting to find her sipping coffee or scrolling Instagram, but she wasn't there. A note on the counter caught his eye. Asterisk, had an early meeting. Don't wait up tonight, working late. Love you. Asterisk. Working late? On a Saturday? Sophie's marketing job was demanding, but it had never bled into weekends before. Ethan frowned, his gut nodding. As the days stretched into weeks, Sophie's late nights and cryptic texts became a pattern. Ethan tried to push the doubts aside, blaming himself for being overly sensitive. But when Sophie began spending less time at home, skipping out on their planned shoots and avoiding his questions, the doubts became impossible to ignore. "Hey, do you want to grab dinner after the Q&A live stream tomorrow?" he asked one evening, leaning against the bedroom doorframe. Sophie, seated at her vanity, barely looked up from her makeup bag. "Can't. I have a meeting." Ethan's brow furrowed. "Another meeting? You're busier than me these days." She forced a laugh. "That's because I don't have people lining up to send me free protein bars. You know it's more than that." His tone sharpened. "Sophie, are you okay? You've been different lately." "I'm fine." Her reply was curt as she stood and grabbed her purse. "Where are you going now?" "Out with Kayla." "Don't wait up." Ethan didn't press further. But as the door clicked shut behind her, he felt the first real crack in their picture-perfect life. The real turning point came a few nights later. Ethan had been editing his latest vlog, a laid-back Q&A about relationship goals, when Sophie's phone buzzed on the coffee table. She was in the shower, leaving Ethan alone with the device. He hesitated, guilt prickling at his conscience. But then it buzzed again, and the name Liam Harrington flashed on the screen. Liam. The name wasn't familiar, but the message was. Asterisk. Can't wait to see you again tonight. Same place. Asterisk. Ethan's blood ran cold. His hands trembled as he set the phone back down, acting on instinct to avoid leaving a trace. Sophie's footsteps echoed from the bathroom, and he scrambled to focus on his laptop, his mind racing. Who was Liam Harrington? And why was Sophie meeting him? That night, as Sophie slipped out with a vague excuse about work, Ethan opened his laptop and began searching. Within moments, he found Liam Harrington, a slick, silver-tongued entrepreneur with a penchant for luxury cars and high-profile scandals. Liam's Instagram feed was a gallery of opulence. Private jets, five-star dinners, and the kind of suits that screamed custom-tailored. Ethan stared at the screen, bile rising in his throat. Was Sophie meeting him? He debated texting her, confronting her right then and there, but something stopped him. He needed proof. Solid proof. Ethan's suspicion led him to follow Sophie a few nights later. She had dressed in her best. A little black dress he didn't recognize and heels that clicked purposefully against the pavement. Ethan trailed her at a distance, his pulse pounding as she hailed a cab and headed toward the heart of downtown LA. She entered an upscale restaurant, one Ethan had always joked was too pretentious for their tastes. He watched from across the street, his heart shattering as Liam Harrington arrived moments later. Sophie's face lit up, her laughter audible even through the glass. Ethan clenched his fists, torn between storming in and dragging her out or walking away and pretending he hadn't seen anything. In the end, he did neither. Instead, he pulled out his phone and snapped a picture of them together, his chest tightening with every click. Sophie wasn't just seeing another man. She was seeing a man whose wealth and charm made Ethan feel small in ways he never thought possible. Ethan returned home that night, the evidence of Sophie's betrayal burning a hole in his camera roll. His world, the carefully constructed life he had built online and off, was crumbling. And he wasn't going to let it fall apart without taking Sophie and Liam down with him. Ethan had always been a storyteller. He knew how to weave emotions into narratives, how to take a single moment and blow it into something big, something unforgettable. But this was a story he couldn't control. Sophie's betrayal consumed his thoughts, eating away at the edges of his carefully curated life. Each time he opened Instagram, their smiling pictures mocked him. Their fans gushed over how perfect they were, how real their love seemed. Ethan clenched his jaw, scrolling past comments like, asterisk, couple goals, asterisk and asterisk, when's the wedding? Asterisk, if only they knew. The next morning, Ethan sat at the kitchen table, his coffee growing cold. Sophie breezed in, radiant as ever, dressed in casual athleisure that somehow looked runway ready. She kissed him on the cheek like nothing had changed, like she hadn't just spent the previous night laughing at another man's jokes. You're up early, she said, rummaging through the fridge. Couldn't sleep? Ethan replied, watching her closely. She didn't even flinch. You should try melatonin. Works wonders. Ethan forced a smile. Maybe I will. As Sophie poured herself a glass of green juice, Ethan's mind raced. He needed to play this carefully. Blowing up at her now wouldn't get him the answers or the revenge he craved. Ethan spent the rest of the day piecing together the fragments of Sophie's double life. He combed through her Instagram posts, looking for inconsistencies. Nothing seemed off at first glance, but when he cross-referenced the dates with Liam's tagged photos, a pattern emerged. 3 weeks ago, Sophie had posted a casual selfie from a girls' night out, but Liam's feed showed a picture of his Bentley parked in front of the same restaurant Ethan had seen them enter. Another post claimed she was working late, but Liam's stories from that night showed a private wine tasting, complete with a blurry silhouette of a woman in a dress that looked suspiciously familiar. Ethan's stomach churned. How long had this been going on? That evening, Sophie came home earlier than usual. She was cheerful, chatting about her day and tossing her bag onto the couch. Ethan forced himself to act normal, biting back the questions bubbling in his throat. Everything okay? Sophie asked, noticing his silence. Yeah, just tired, Ethan said, his voice flat. You've been working too hard, she said, running her fingers through his hair. Her touch, once comforting, now felt like a lie. I guess, Ethan muttered, pulling away. He wanted to scream at her, to demand an explanation, but he knew it wasn't the right time. He needed more than anger. He needed leverage. The opportunity came the next morning when Sophie left for a yoga class. She had forgotten her phone on the kitchen counter, a rare slip. Ethan's hands shook as he picked it up, his thumb hovering over the screen. The lock screen showed no new notifications, but Ethan knew better. He entered her passcode, his birthday ironically, and opened her messages. There it was, a thread with Liam Harrington. Liam, asterisk, last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. Asterisk. Sophie. Asterisk me too. You make me feel alive. Asterisk. Ethan's stomach twisted. He scrolled further, finding months' worth of messages filled with flirtation, inside jokes, and plans to meet. There were pictures too. Sophie in the same black dress he'd seen her wear, Liam posing beside her with a smug grin. Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. He wanted to smash it, but instead, he took screenshots of everything and sent them to himself. For the next week, Ethan played the part of the oblivious boyfriend. He laughed at Sophie's jokes, posed for their vlogs, and even went along with a romantic dinner she suggested. But behind the scenes, he was working tirelessly. He began researching Liam's business dealings, digging into public records, lawsuits, and anything he could find online. It didn't take long to uncover a trail of scandals. Accusations of tax evasion, insider trading, and fraudulent contracts. Liam's empire was built on a house of cards, and Ethan intended to knock it down. Ethan's break came one evening when Sophie forgot to log out of her email on their shared laptop. He hadn't planned to check her inbox, but curiosity got the better of him. Among the usual work emails and spam, one subject line stood out: asterisk re, proposal details, Harrington Holdings. Asterisk. Ethan clicked it. The email was a back and forth between Sophie and Liam's assistant, discussing a potential role for Sophie in Liam's company. The language was vague, but the offer was clear. Liam wanted Sophie to be part of his inner circle. Attached was a contract promising a 6-figure salary and discretionary benefits. Ethan snorted. He could guess what those benefits entailed. Ethan didn't wait long to act. Using the screenshots and emails he had collected, he crafted an anonymous tip and sent it to several journalists and a financial watchdog group. He detailed Liam's shady practices, attaching evidence to back up his claims. Within days, articles began surfacing online, questioning the legitimacy of Harrington Holdings. Investors started pulling out, and Liam's carefully curated image of success began to crack. Sophie remained oblivious to Ethan's involvement, though the tension in their home grew palpable. Ethan used his platform to drop cryptic hints about betrayal and fake personas, letting his followers speculate. Sometimes, people aren't who you think they are, he said in one vlog, staring directly into the camera. Comments flooded in. Asterisk. Everything okay, Ethan? Asterisk asterisk. Is this about Sophie? Asterisk. Sophie noticed too. What's with the emo posts? She asked one evening, trying to laugh it off. Just reflecting, Ethan replied coolly. By the end of the week, Liam's empire was in freefall, and Sophie's world was about to follow. Ethan wasn't done yet. Ethan woke up the next morning to a barrage of notifications. His latest cryptic Instagram post, a simple shot of a shattered mirror with the caption, "Not everything is as it seems," had exploded overnight. Thousands of comments flooded in, many speculating about trouble in his relationship with Sophie. Sophie, however, remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing. She was humming in the kitchen, flipping pancakes, her sunny demeanor a cruel contrast to the chaos Ethan had uncovered. "Morning, babe," she chirped, sliding a plate in front of him. "Morning." Ethan forced a smile, though his appetite was non-existent. As Sophie went about her day, Ethan logged onto his laptop and checked the news. His anonymous tip had done its job. The headlines were damning. Harrington Holdings faces investigation over fraud allegations. Asterisk. Liam Harrington's luxurious empire built on lies? Asterisk. The articles detailed a litany of accusations. Forged financial statements, unpaid vendors, and shell companies used to launder money. Ethan leaned back in his chair, a grim satisfaction settling over him. This was only the beginning. Ethan's next move was even riskier. He created a burner email account and posed as a whistleblower from within Liam's company. Carefully wording his message, he sent additional documents to the journalists covering the story. These documents, meticulously fabricated using details from Liam's social media and public records, painted a picture of widespread corruption. Within hours, more stories emerged, each one more damaging than the last. Liam's carefully curated image of success was unraveling at a rapid pace, and Ethan reveled in every update. That evening, Sophie returned home later than usual. She looked frazzled, her usual composure replaced by nervous energy. "Everything okay?" Ethan asked, feigning concern. "Yeah, just a crazy day at work," she replied, avoiding his gaze. Ethan decided to push her. "You sure? You seem off." Sophie hesitated, her fingers fidgeting with the strap of her purse. "It's just, Liam's company is in trouble. Some scandal or something. He's been freaking out about it." Ethan's heart raced, but he kept his face neutral. "Liam? Who's Liam?" Her head snapped up, her eyes wide. "Oh, he's just someone from work." Ethan tilted his head, his expression unreadable. "Funny. You've never mentioned him before." Sophie's face flushed, and she busied herself with unpacking groceries. "It's not a big deal. He's just a client." "A client?" That was her excuse? Ethan bit back a sarcastic laugh. "Sounds stressful." "You have no idea," she muttered, her voice tight. Over the next few days, Sophie grew increasingly anxious. She spent more time on her phone, whispering into it late at night when she thought Ethan was asleep. The distance between them widened, and Ethan's patience wore thin. One evening, as Sophie prepared to leave for yet another work meeting, Ethan blocked the door. "Where are you going?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. "Ethan, please. I told you it's work." "Work? With Liam?" Her eyes widened in panic, but she quickly masked it with anger. "You've been spying on me? Don't turn this around on me," Ethan snapped. "I know what you've been doing, Sophie. I've seen the messages, the photos. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" Sophie's bravado crumbled, and tears filled her eyes. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is," Ethan demanded, his voice shaking. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been sneaking around with a guy who's about to lose everything." Her head snapped up. "What do you mean?" Ethan smirked. "Oh, you don't know? Liam's empire is falling apart. Turns out your knight in shining armor is a fraud." Sophie's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" Ethan stepped closer, his voice dripping with venom. "I'm talking about the truth, Sophie. Something you seem to have forgotten how to tell." The next day, Ethan received an email from an unexpected source. Liam Harrington. The subject line read, "*cease and desist*". Ethan opened it, his lips curling into a smile as he read the poorly veiled threat. Liam accused him of defamation and demanded he retract his statements. The email reeked of desperation, a far cry from the confident, untouchable image Liam projected online. Ethan forwarded the email to the same journalists he'd been feeding information to, knowing it would only add fuel to the fire. Sophie's demeanor shifted dramatically as Liam's troubles deepened. She became withdrawn, avoiding Ethan's gaze and spending long hours locked in the bedroom. When she finally emerged, her face was streaked with tears. "We need to talk," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan crossed his arms. "Oh, now you want to talk? I made a mistake," Sophie began, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." Ethan scoffed. "Didn't mean for what? For me to find out? Or for Liam's business to implode?" Sophie flinched, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I was unhappy, Ethan. You were so focused on your followers, your image. I felt invisible." "Invisible?" Ethan's voice rose. "So your solution was to run to some sleazy businessman? You could have talked to me, Sophie. Instead, you lied. You cheated." "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I thought Liam could give me something you couldn't. But now I see he's nothing compared to you." Ethan stared at her, his anger warring with the lingering love he felt. But as much as her tears tugged at his heart, the memory of her betrayal was stronger. "It's too late," he said coldly. "You made your choice." The next day, news broke that Liam Harrington was under federal investigation. His assets were frozen, his investors had fled, and his reputation was irreparably damaged. Ethan watched the coverage with a sense of grim satisfaction. He had won. Sophie's lover was ruined, and their perfect facade had crumbled. Sophie, meanwhile, was left to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. She tried to repair things with Ethan, but he had already made up his mind. "You should go," he told her one evening, his voice devoid of emotion. "Ethan, please," she begged. "We can fix this." "There's nothing to fix," he said. "You broke it." As Sophie packed her things and walked out the door, Ethan felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. He had lost someone, but he had also regained his freedom. And as Liam's downfall continued to dominate the headlines, Ethan couldn't help but smile. Revenge had never tasted so sweet. Ethan had built a career on storytelling, but this was his masterpiece. The downfall of Liam Harrington, and, by proxy, Sophie, was unfolding like a gripping narrative, one twist at a time. But the audience wasn't just his million-strong following. It was the entire city of Los Angeles and beyond. He watched the drama from a distance, his presence felt but never overt. Every headline about Liam's corruption, every whisper of Sophie's betrayal, was a carefully placed chess move. Ethan wasn't just reacting, he was orchestrating. Ethan's plan gained momentum when he released his most dramatic vlog yet. Filmed in a minimalist style, with moody lighting and somber music, the video was titled Asterisk, When Trust Breaks. Asterisk. The opening shot was a close-up of Ethan staring into the camera, his expression raw. "Sometimes," he began, his voice low, "the people you trust the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest." He didn't name names or give specific details, but his words were heavy with implication. Clips of their past vlogs, Sophie laughing at his jokes, the two of them posing together on vacations, played on the screen, interspersed with shots of Ethan looking contemplative and heartbroken. "It's not easy to share this," he said, "but I owe it to myself and to all of you to be honest. Because honesty is all we have when the illusions fade." The video ended with a cryptic message. Asterisk, more to come. Asterisk. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Fans flooded the comments with messages of support and curiosity. Asterisk, Ethan, we're here for you. Asterisk. Asterisk. Did something happen with Sophie? Asterisk. Asterisk. You're so brave for sharing this. Asterisk. The speculation only fueled the video's virality, racking up millions of views within hours. Ethan watched the numbers climb, feeling a grim satisfaction with every refresh. Sophie, oblivious to the brewing storm, texted Ethan the next day. "Sophie asterisk asterisk, can we talk? I miss you. Asterisk. Ethan asterisk asterisk. There's nothing left to say. Asterisk." The coldness of his reply stung, but Ethan didn't care. She'd made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. The narrative online began to shift. Fans who once idolized Sophie turned against her, dissecting every interaction in their old vlogs for signs of deceit. Ethan said nothing, letting the tide of public opinion do his work for him. Meanwhile, Liam Harrington's life was unraveling at breakneck speed. The media frenzy surrounding his alleged fraud intensified as more whistleblowers came forward. Ethan's burner email had been the catalyst, but the chaos now had a life of its own. News outlets reported that Liam's accounts were frozen, his assets seized, and his name tarnished. Investors who had once sung his praises now distanced themselves publicly, calling him a liability. For Ethan, it was poetry. Liam, the man who had stolen Sophie and flaunted his wealth, was now exposed as a fraud. Sophie showed up at Ethan's apartment one evening, her eyes puffy and red. "Ethan, please," she said, standing in the doorway. "I need to talk to you." Ethan leaned against the doorframe, his arms crossed. "Why are you here?" "I didn't know," she blurted, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know what kind of person Liam was. I thought he was different." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And now you realize he's not? That he's a liar and a cheat? Funny how karma works." "I made a mistake," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I got caught up in his promises. I was stupid. But Ethan, I never stopped loving you." Ethan laughed bitterly. "Love? You don't even know what that means. If you loved me, you wouldn't have lied to me. You wouldn't have run off to him the moment things got tough. "I thought I wanted more," Sophie sobbed. "But now I see I had everything I needed with you." Ethan's expression hardened. "You had everything, Sophie, and you threw it away. Now you get to live with the consequences." The next day, Ethan released another video. This one was more polished, with a dramatic tone. "I've learned a lot about trust recently," he said, addressing the camera. "How easy it is to break, how hard it is to rebuild, and how some people will never deserve it again." He didn't name Sophie or Liam directly, but the undertones were clear. As the video went live, Ethan's followers rallied behind him, sharing their own stories of betrayal and heartbreak. Meanwhile, Liam's name became synonymous with scandal. Every new revelation about his business practices was another nail in the coffin, and Ethan made sure to amplify each one on his social platforms. The backlash against Sophie grew as more fans connected the dots. Brands she had worked with quietly dropped her, and her once thriving Instagram account became a wasteland of hateful comments and unfollows. Ethan didn't intervene. He didn't need to. Sophie's reputation was crumbling under the weight of her own actions. As the dust settled, Ethan shifted his focus back to himself. He started creating content that reflected his growth and resilience, sharing stories about self-worth and moving on. His followers responded enthusiastically, praising him for his authenticity. But Ethan wasn't done yet. Ethan announced a surprise live stream, teasing it as his most personal project yet. Tens of thousands tuned in, expecting a tearful confession or an inspiring message. Instead, they got something far more dramatic. Ethan began by recounting the past few months, his heartbreak, his discovery of the truth, and his decision to take control of his narrative. Then, he revealed the receipts. Photos, screenshots, and timelines that exposed Sophie's affair and Liam's role in it. He shared them carefully, ensuring the focus was on the lessons learned rather than the scandal itself. The live stream went viral instantly, cementing Ethan's reputation as a bold and unapologetic voice in the influencer world. Liam Harrington's empire was gone, his name forever tarnished. Sophie disappeared from the public eye, her once bright future reduced to a cautionary tale. And Ethan? He thrived. With his newfound clarity, he built a brand rooted in honesty and resilience. He no longer needed Sophie or the illusion of perfection. He had reclaimed his story, and for the first time in a long time, Ethan felt free. Ethan Carter had always been a storyteller, but he never imagined his own life would become the narrative everyone couldn't stop watching. His live stream had been the final act in a months-long drama that left Liam Harrington's empire in ruins and Sophie Bennett a pariah. Now, in the aftermath, Ethan was navigating a strange new world, one where he was both celebrated and scrutinized. The headlines about Liam Harrington weren't just sensational. They were damning. Reports detailed fraudulent deals, unpaid vendors, and a complex web of lies that propped up his so-called success. Regulators had frozen his assets, and former associates were lining up to distance themselves from the disgraced businessman. Ethan watched the chaos unfold from the comfort of his apartment, each update bringing a grim satisfaction. But then came the inevitable retaliation. An email landed in Ethan's inbox with the subject line, "Asterisk, you'll regret this." Asterisk. The message was brief but chilling. Asterisk, you think you've won? You don't know who you're messing with. Asterisk. Ethan stared at the screen, his pulse quickening. Liam's bravado didn't scare him. If anything, it confirmed that the man was unraveling. Sophie, meanwhile, had disappeared from social media entirely. Her once thriving Instagram account had gone silent, and her follower count plummeted daily. The backlash against her had been swift and unforgiving. Ethan heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd moved out of their old apartment and was staying with her sister in Long Beach. He felt a pang of guilt but quickly pushed it aside. Sophie had made her choices, and now she was facing the consequences. One evening, his phone buzzed with a text from her. "Sophie asterisk asterisk, can we meet? Just once? Please. Asterisk." Ethan stared at the message, debating whether to reply. Against his better judgment, he typed back, "Ethan asterisk asterisk tomorrow. 3 p.m. Cafe Verona. Asterisk." Café Verona was a quiet spot tucked away from the bustling streets of downtown Los Angeles. Ethan arrived first, claiming a corner table where he could see the door. When Sophie walked in, she looked like a shadow of her former self. Her usually flawless makeup was minimal, and her eyes were puffy, as if she hadn't slept in days. She hesitated when she saw him, then walked over, clutching her purse like a lifeline. "Hi," she said softly. Ethan nodded but didn't say anything, gesturing for her to sit. Sophie took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "I owe you an apology. A real one. You think." Ethan's tone was sharp, but he kept his voice low. "I know I hurt you," Sophie said, her voice cracking. "I was selfish and stupid, and I let myself get caught up in something that wasn't real." Ethan leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "So why are you here?" "Guilt." Sophie shook her head. "I miss you. I miss us." Ethan's laugh was bitter. "You don't miss me. You miss the stability I gave you, the life I built." Her eyes filled with tears, but Ethan didn't soften. "What did you think was going to happen, Sophie? That I'd just take you back? That we could pretend none of this ever happened?" "No," she whispered. I don't know. I wanted to see you, to try to explain." "Well, you've seen me," Ethan said coldly, "and I've heard your explanation, but it doesn't change anything." Sophie nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand." As she stood to leave, Ethan spoke one last time. "You made your choice, Sophie. Now, live with it." As Sophie faded into the background, Liam Harrington made one last desperate attempt to salvage his reputation. He announced a press conference, promising to address the allegations against him. The event was heavily publicized, with journalists and cameras crowding the hotel ballroom where it was held. Ethan watched the live stream from his couch, curious to see what lies Liam would spin this time. Dressed in a tailored suit, Liam tried to project confidence, but the cracks in his facade were evident. He blamed the accusations on disgruntled former employees and malicious rumors, but the press wasn't buying it. Midway through the Q&A session, a reporter interrupted him. "Mr. Harrington, what do you say to claims that you've been laundering money through shell companies?" Liam stammered, his carefully rehearsed responses faltering. "Those allegations are completely baseless." Another reporter cut in. "What about the whistleblower's evidence? The emails, the contracts?" The room erupted into chaos, reporters shouting over one another as Liam's composure crumbled. Ethan smirked, knowing Liam's downfall was now irreversible. With Liam out of the picture and Sophie no longer a part of his life, Ethan focused on rebuilding himself. His content shifted away from couple-centric vlogs and toward personal growth, creativity, and resilience. One of his most popular videos was titled Rebuilding After Betrayal. In it, Ethan opened up about the lessons he'd learned and the importance of valuing oneself. "I used to think my life had to look perfect to be worth something," he said, staring into the camera. "But now I know the truth. It's not about appearances. It's about authenticity." The video resonated deeply with his audience, earning millions of views and sparking thousands of comments. Months later, Ethan received a handwritten letter in the mail. It was from Sophie. "Ethan, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I needed to say this. I'm truly sorry for everything I did to you. You didn't deserve any of it, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I'm trying to pick up the pieces now, but it's hard knowing I destroyed the best thing I ever had. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me someday. If not, I understand. Take care of yourself. Sophie." Ethan read the letter twice, then folded it and tucked it away in a drawer. He didn't reply. Ethan's life moved on, brighter and better without the weight of betrayal holding him back. He traveled, created, and thrived, proving that even the deepest wounds could heal. As for Liam and Sophie, they became footnotes in his story, cautionary tales of greed and infidelity. And Ethan? He lived not just as a survivor, but as someone who had taken control of his own narrative. Ethan Carter stood at the edge of a rooftop in downtown Los Angeles, the city sprawling out below him like a glittering sea. He held his phone in one hand, its screen glowing with the notification of another viral video. His latest upload, Lessons from the Fall, was already climbing the trending charts. He didn't smile, though. Not this time. The success was bittersweet, a hollow echo of the satisfaction he thought revenge would bring. The lives of Sophie Bennett and Liam Harrington were in shambles, and Ethan had played no small part in their downfall. But now, as the dust settled, a question lingered in his mind. What comes next? The weeks following the public unraveling of Sophie and Liam had been surreal. Ethan's follower count surged, his sponsorship deals multiplied, and his inbox overflowed with opportunities. Everyone wanted to know his story, to see how he had taken back control of his life in such a dramatic way. Yet, as the accolades poured in, so did the criticisms. Some accused him of exploiting his personal life for views, of weaponizing his platform to destroy others. Ethan dismissed most of the hate, but a small part of him wondered if they were right. Had he gone too far? One evening, Ethan received a surprising email from a journalist who had covered the Harrington scandal extensively. The subject line read, "Asterisk, let's talk. Asterisk." The message was simple. Asterisk, "Hi Ethan, I've been following your story and wanted to reach out. There's something I think you should see. Can we meet? Asterisk. Asterisk best. Ava Moreno. LA Times asterisk. Curiosity got the better of him, and he agreed to meet Ava the next day at a small coffee shop. Ava was sharp-eyed and direct, cutting straight to the point as they sipped their drinks. "I've been digging into Liam Harrington's past," she said. "What I found is, well, let's just say his downfall isn't the end of the story." Ethan leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Ava pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Inside were documents, court filings, old business contracts, and financial records. "Liam didn't just hurt investors," Ava explained. "He ruined lives. There's a whole network of people who've been affected by his schemes. And I think you might want to hear their stories." Ethan flipped through the pages, his stomach tightening. The scale of Liam's fraud was staggering, but what struck him most were the personal stories. Families who had lost their homes, small business owners driven into bankruptcy. "This is insane," he muttered. Ava nodded. "You've already exposed him to the world, but there's more to uncover. If you're interested, I think we could work together on something bigger." Ethan spent the next few days poring over the files Ava had shared. As he read the stories of Liam's victims, his perspective began to shift. His vendetta against Liam had started as a personal crusade, but now he saw an opportunity to turn it into something meaningful. He agreed to collaborate with Ava on a documentary series that would expose the full extent of Liam's corruption. Together, they interviewed victims, pieced together timelines, and uncovered even deeper layers of deceit. The project was grueling but cathartic. For the first time in months, Ethan felt like he was using his platform for something bigger than himself. In the midst of the documentary's production, Sophie reached out to Ethan again, this time through a mutual friend. "She wants to talk," the friend said. "Just once. Closure, I guess." Ethan hesitated. He'd already turned the page on that chapter of his life, but something compelled him to agree. They met at a quiet park on a cloudy afternoon. Sophie looked better than she had the last time he'd seen her. More composed, though there was still a sadness in her eyes. "Thank you for meeting me," she said softly. Ethan nodded, keeping his distance. "What do you want, Sophie?" She sighed, her hands fidgeting in her lap. I needed to say goodbye properly. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize now how badly I hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better." Ethan studied her, searching for signs of manipulation but finding none. She seemed genuine, broken, but sincere. "I appreciate that," he said finally. "But forgiveness isn't something I can give you right now. Maybe someday." Sophie nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I understand. I hope you find happiness, Ethan. You deserve it." For the first time in months, Ethan felt a glimmer of peace. He nodded. "You too." The documentary series, titled Harrington, The Empire of Lies, Premiered on a major streaming platform 6 months later, it was an instant sensation, praised for its unflinching look at greed, corruption, and the human cost of ambition. Ethan's role in the series brought him a new kind of fame, one rooted in advocacy rather than spectacle. He used the platform to support the victims featured in the documentary, raising funds and awareness for their causes. One night, after a whirlwind of interviews and appearances, Ethan returned to his apartment and stood on the same rooftop where he had once questioned what came next. The city stretched out before him, alive with possibilities. Ethan smiled for the first time in a long while. Not a performative grin for the camera, but a real, genuine smile. He wasn't just the guy who exposed a fraud or survived betrayal anymore. He was someone who had turned pain into purpose, someone who had found strength in the wreckage. And for the first time, he felt like the story he was living was one he could be proud of.